This is The Real Gig with Bret Alexander.
Here we are again. Yes, sir.
Indeed.
We left off last time. Our heroes were just got a record deal, Breaking Benjamin guys. So we're going to dig back in. Jeremy Hummel, part 2. So we you got a record deal. Like, what was the first touring that you did after? Like, when you first went out?
First tour was it was called the Miller Lite Side Door Tour.
Okay.
So we were playing with Cold. Do you remember the band Cold?
Yeah. Well, Cold were on A&M, so we were,
Yeah. So it was Cold and us and I think one other band, and we were going around and doing maybe not big places at all.
Yeah.
It was sponsored by Miller Lite. Nothing too grand. And then the first big tour that we had that came after that was 3 Doors Down.
Okay.
So then we did 3 Doors Down, met up with those guys at the House of Blues in Anaheim, California. Nice. One cool story about the first time of meeting those guys is heard this guy playing the drums during sound check. And like if I'd hear other drummers playing, like usually it would be good, but I heard this guy and I was like, who in the world is playing? This guy is amazing. And his name is Daniel Adair, and he later, after 3 Doors Down, he became the drummer for Nickelback. And he's been with Nickelback for probably 15 to 20 years now. But just a super cool guy, and we became really good friends on the road. And it was just nice to have a drum bro. But those guys were really kind to us. And as I said before, they gave us some good words of wisdom. There was 3 Doors Down. And then I think it was Evanescence and Seether after that.
I remember you guys playing with Seether for some reason. Evanescence, maybe?
Yeah, we did. We may have done Seether, just the two of us, but not too long after that, it was Evanescence and Seether together. And that was cool. That was a pretty cool tour. And the one that we really wanted to get, though, that we thought would really help us to be in the heavier markets, so to speak. Seether was kind of heavier, but I remember one of Ben's concerns was that going out with Evanescence was that he wanted us to be in the eyes of people who liked heavier music. And I remember that with Evanescence that he was concerned that we might not be playing to that particular crowd that, was female. They were rock, but you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
So Godsmack was the tour that we really wanted to get. Fuel was in there as well.
I remember you guys playing with Fuel.
Fuel was cool, yeah. And I remember having a conversation with Larry.
Like, you guys are all this work and get a record deal and heading out on the world stage, and you're touring with a band 45 minutes from you. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, exactly. One of the things that made that tour fun with Fuel, what made that tour fun was that one of the dates on the tour was at Susquehanna University. So, I mean,
you could walk to the gig.
Yeah, it was pretty nice because, I could have people come and then I could do the gig and then walk down. I still have my apartment in Selinsgrove. I had to stop down at my house real quick. But
forgot something, yeah.
But, one of the things that not a lot of people know that are not in the music industry is that sometimes when you're trying to get an opening spot with a band who's pretty popular, is that, you might have to throw in a couple of perks, to that band. It could be monetary, right? And I remember Godsmack was trying to decide on, us, and I think Trapped at the time was another one they were thinking of, but they were trying to decide between a couple bands. I was on the phone with Larry. I used to talk to Larry every day about stuff. And I remember very, very distinctly saying, what if we don't get this tour? Because it was going to be if we didn't do this tour, we were probably going to pack it in and then start album 2. And I just remember Larry saying very distinctly, he's like, we will get this. He said, mark my words. He said, consider it a done deal. And I was feeling very uncertain about everything, and it happened. So I have to give Larry credit because it was uncertain times, but he was still felt very come hell or high water, but we're going to get this tour. And then we did. And then we did that for a while. And then we stayed on the road for a while longer after that, too. In fact, we had 2 different stints with Godsmack and that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would have been a good hookup for you guys.
Yes.
They were pretty famously a good live band. I never saw Godsmack live. But.
Very, very good live band. And one of the things I was really excited about is that when I was younger, maybe like teens, early 20s, there was a drummer, Shannon Larkin. And he used to play with Wrathchild America in Maryland, D.C. area, but then he was with a band called Souls at Zero, and the lead singer from that was Brad Devins from Kix. But this was almost like a hardcore album, but Shannon's drumming was just so influential and amazing to me. And the first night of the tour, I wasn't sure how I was going to handle talking to him, because sometimes if you decide to go and introduce yourself, you don't want the people you really admire and respect to be rude or anything, Sure. Shannon actually came to our dressing room, knocked on the door. I'd like to introduce himself, which was super cool. And then I just had a chance to tell him hey man, I just loved your drumming on this stuff. And he was very, appreciative and super cool. After the first night, he came over to me and he's like, man, I loved your band and stuff. So that was really nice for me. Yeah.
When we were out with Bob Seger, Kenny Aronoff was the drummer.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and Kenny, there had a tent right behind the drum kit, was just sort of tuning guitars, fixing things, stuff like that.
Right.
And they had this guy that was their tech guy, who was actually a tech guy for Rush. His name was Jack Secret.
Okay.
And he was back there. So Kenny would allow us to basically sit behind his ass, you know what I mean? We were right behind him, right behind the drum throne,
right, during
these shows, and he'd let us sit in there and watch him play and stuff. And that was a treat.
Yes, absolutely.
I always say drums. We sit here and talk about drums, and I talk about drums. I can't play the drums, and I don't play the drums, and it's one of those few things in my life that I love, and I'm really I love good drumming. I'm obsessed with good drum parts and groove and all that stuff in my recording, but I don't really know how to do it. Most things I'm not as interested in unless I want to do them or I do them. Sure. But yeah. I've just had you guys around, you know what I mean? So I'm I'm never going to get there. So this is much easier, Yeah, I mean, it's cool to get out there. And a thing I found too with drummers is the drummers we've had this, there's modern drummer and drum, there's all these sort of publications and
sure.
Online publications now, but they were always magazines when we were kids. And drummers are much more communal.
Great word. Yeah. Great word.
It's like there's not modern lead singer. They all think each other sucks, or they can't get along for 5 seconds, You know what I mean? It's they're not getting together and talking about singing.
No.
Where our drummer's I want to know what the other guy's using and the stuff, and they're very communal. Even guitarists aren't. There's Guitar World and Guitar Player magazine when I was a kid, but we have our fans and stuff, but we don't hang like drummers.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty neat thing.
It is.
So, okay, so you guys are out and you're doing all those tours. Were you ever on a tour or got to play with somebody and found yourself starstruck?
Once.
Yeah.
One time.
Really?
Yep. Because I've told this story several times. One of the first shows that we did. This is a one-off though. Okay. Huge festival, Indianapolis. The headliners were Stone Temple Pilots, Kid Rock. Mm-hmm. So we play our set during the day. Something was going on the next morning too. I forget what it was, but anyhow, I'm standing outside the door for catering. I had just gotten done eating, and the dudes from Stone Temple Pilots, come walking to the catering, and these guys were through and through rock and roll. 24/7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's people who put that not front, but you know what I'm saying? They kind of dress the part, but then you'll find them, in slippers and sweatpants backstage or whatever. And these guys were full regalia the whole time. And it was Scott Weiland too, right? So they're walking toward me and I really wanted to say something to them, just say, hey, your music is great. I've loved listening to you, and saying something drummer. And as they just walked past me, and then nothing ever came out of my mouth, and they just walked in. Yeah, exactly. They walked into the building. I was like, what are you doing, man? You didn't even say anything, but it was just, they just had this aura about them. And that was a starstruck moment for me. Yeah.
That's funny. I got that way when I met Greg Allman for the first time.
Sure. Yeah.
And we were playing House of Blues in New Orleans.
Okay.
And the road manager or whatever took me out, and he was sitting in a high top table out there, and just like Harley t-shirt and the biker boots and the
he's another one that was his lifestyle.
19-year-old girlfriend and then it was just like he like introduced himself as Gregory, I'm Gregory.
Okay. And
then he just had all these little isms over time, and that were just like your weird old uncle kind of guy,
right.
just insanely hilarious, funny. Yeah. Yeah,
you met Levon too, right?
I met Levon.
You told me about the studio. He's like, you can tell it, but he's call it Levon studio, whatever.
The part was like meeting Levon. I always said like meeting Levon Helm was like meeting Johnny Appleseed or something. Some like iconic American folk hero,
right? Lived in the backwoods or something.
And he's sitting there and he's telling these stories and he's telling all these stories back and forth, and the whole time he's like bumming cigarettes off of everybody. He's like bumming cigarettes, and he bums I don't know, half dozen. He's talking. We're not saying anything. We're just sitting there. He's standing on the steps of his bus,
okay,
and talking and bumming these cigarettes off of our whole crew here, and then he gets, then it was at some point, he was like, Levon, we should come up record at your place sometime, He says, you have a website? He's like, no, I don't. I said, well, what's your studio called? He says, I call it Levon Studio. I call it Levon Studio.
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
I always love that. Yeah. It's like, really good.
And I was like, okay, we'll check that out. And the reason he knew about our band is because we had a song that was going to be in a Steven Seagal movie.
Oh,
and he was also an actor. So that's where
Levon was an actor?
Well, yeah, he was like in Coal Miner's Daughter
that's right.
and The Right Stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And so he had done a bunch of acting, and he was in this Steven Seagal movie.
Okay.
And we ended up not being in the soundtrack, but we were one of we were presented for it.
Sure.
So
yeah.
He had heard us at that time. We played with him. But the funny part was he's bumming all these cigarettes. We get to the end of the conversation. He reaches in his pocket, pulls out a full pack of cigarettes, puts one in his mouth, like, see you boys later. Takes off. We're like, oh man, it's like Riverboat Gambler.
Right, yeah.
And then that was like,
scarfing our smokes the whole time, and he had his own. Yeah.
Like, that was the end of that, But yeah, like those characters, I mean, it's just these, just larger than life. And there's just a couple of them, not many.
Right.
But a couple of them. So, all right, so the thing I remember, so if at the end of, how long would that have been you guys were out on that first tour? Probably, I don't know, probably a year?
I was going to say probably about a year and a half total, like all together, yeah.
So you guys didn't have that moment of, they asked you if you wanted to come off the road, it just kind of ended? Or just kind of wound down?
Yeah, I think it wound down, and I think they were excited for us to get back into the studio to have us put together some more material. And I also think there weren't any more plans of releasing any more singles, so to speak, off of that album. So we just decided, like, okay, let's regroup, and we'll start the process for the next record.
For the next record?
Yep.
Okay. I remember, I think it was at the end of that tour, I remember distinctly seeing you guys. It was like up in Northeast PA. It was at the staircase, the new staircase, the second staircase. And I just remember seeing you guys play. I was just like, Jesus Christ. It was amazing. It sounded so good. It was really good. And I just remember that show in particular, like a freight train. You guys have been out for a while, like doing it every night and just kind of in that groove. And that was really fantastic. I mean, you guys, that was very good.
We were, like I said before, from the time we first played together, really tight, really good chemistry. And then, as you develop that road tightness where you're playing so often together. So by the time that I think you saw that show, I believe it was near the end of that touring cycle or something like that. But yeah, we were playing well.
You were playing really well.
Yep.
And like Aaron has for the style of music that I play or I write is much more loosey-goosey, two guitars kind of.
Yep.
It's not, I want to have Aaron on as well. He described it once as you have to have it requires constant care. You have to make sure everybody's feeling things the same from section to section and all the riffs and it requires constant care. And he said something to the effect of there's a soldier-like mentality to it, just like this execute.
Yeah.
Thing.
Very precise.
Yeah.
Precision. Yep.
Yeah. Which is different than like an Americana band or something. It's much freer and looser, and that's kind of the point.
Yep.
So, okay. So that's pretty successful first tour. Maybe your label thought things were going to take off in a different way, but they usually do.
Yeah.
And they gave you money to make another record. So, did you start working on a record immediately?
Pretty much. This time we rehearsed in drums because Mark and Aaron, Mark and Aaron were both living up in that area. So we kind of looked at it as almost like a regular job. We would, go up there and we wouldn't have to start at 8 a.m., but we usually would rehearse for a good, 5 to 7 hours or something like that every day writing. And so for that one, it was a little bit different because, like I said, the first record was for the most part Ben and I, working on that, and then Mark, of course, Mark and Aaron came in and put their stamps on things. But now we had the four of us, and we got some stuff done at that rehearsal space. But then I remembered Larry hired David Bendith to produce. And he came and he watched us rehearse and stuff like that, listened to a couple songs. And he's like, I just think we need to get you guys out of here. He's like, you've been here for too long. He could kind of tell it was a little sterile at that point. So he took us to New Jersey to a rehearsal studio there. That's where he lived. And then we worked on a lot of the stuff there. And I have to give him credit as a producer because one of the things that he would do for us, especially when we were in sort of a stuck moment, is he would give us references of what we might try to have something sound like. Not duplicate, but I remember things like we were working on, I think it was Sooner or Later or something like that. What would Larry Mullen Jr. do right here? And just trying to get us to think of outside of where we were stuck and not necessarily saying, hey, play like Larry Mullen, but what might he do here? He would do that with us. He also did a thing where he had Mark and I just get together, only the two of us. And we hadn't really done that before, just kind of working some parts out. Sooner or Later was one we did that with, where Mark was very influenced by world rhythms and reggae and that type of thing. So we would work on that, dynamics. And so he was able to kind of keep that together for the most part, because at that time, there was some uncertainties and we were also dealing with some personalities.
Sure.
But he did a good job of pulling that all together.
Yeah.
And then we did the record in Times Square. That's where we recorded. We Were Not Alone. Yeah.
What was the name of the studio up in the city?
I forget.
Yeah. I don't remember where that was recorded.
It's one of those buildings where you look at it from the outside, multiple story building or whatever.
It doesn't look like there's anything going on.
Never imagined as a recording studio. The first time we went there, the elevator door opened and we're like, oh, this is like a full-fledged studio, but you would never know.
Yeah. That's cool.
So we lived in Times Square for a couple months, while we did that. That was pretty fun. The first record we did in Los Angeles, and then we lived there for a couple months while we did that. So those are pretty cool experiences to live in those areas while we did the records.
We did some recording for our second album in Van Nuys, Sound City.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
So we enjoyed that. That was fun. I've recorded individual tracks in New York. I've never made a whole record in New York.
Gotcha.
But individual songs, yes. But remember Aaron calling me. I was on my way to a gig, and he said, "Oh, check this out," And it was the intro to So Cold. You guys were just getting going on it.
Okay.
So I said he was excited about it.
Nice.
And and what you said about David Bendith is, I've thrown out many. I say that in my podcasts here lots of times. That kind of, if you want to get to the next level with this, you have to have that vocabulary of, like you say, Larry Mullen Jr. or U2 doesn't have a lot to do with Breaking Benjamin.
Right.
But you know the music.
Yep.
And you know what it is and how to play it, or at least how to approximate it just by thinking about it in your head. And you've heard it, so you can very easily draw from that vibe, which would be different than drawing from Levon Helm or John Bonham or whoever it is.
Yep, totally.
You could draw from all of those, Butch Trucks or all the other people we've been talking about here.
Yep.
You can kind of draw from all that because you listen to all of it. And I think that's valuable. And I just recently was talking about pre-production is sort of like rehearsal with a referee.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's like a midwife. Somebody's kind of there to go, okay, yeah, there's that. And it's good to have that outside person to kind of push things in a direction. And sometimes there's a guy that maybe there's something that you're onto something, but the personalities involved won't let you be heard.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
that's where you're exactly right. Where the referee, the lukewarm water kind of comes in and sort of, because when that happens, I think for the most part, everybody's willing to listen to that voice. But if that voice is coming from like one of the usual suspects, there could be a potential of like, not that you don't want to hear the person, but you get what I'm saying. You have that voice of reason, and then the four main characters can kind of be like, oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you do reach that cusp sometimes, like you said before everything got established, you reach that point at some point where it's like, okay, I don't know, the music's awesome, but I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Right.
If I can keep dealing with this. So then maybe it's nice to have that guy to maybe pull you back from the brink, or at least sort of, okay, everybody get back in the barn.
Yes, 100% correct.
And you need that. You need those people in your life, whether they be managers or producers or mentors.
Yes,
to kind of like keep you on the level, because it's intense. It's an intense thing. You're creating something. Sometimes you have something in your head and it's not coming out the speakers the way you have it in your head, and other people don't get it at all. It's a shit show. Trying to make a record or make something creative.
Yeah,
but
and having everybody at the end of the day feel pretty good about what you're doing. What I mean? Like everybody's like, yes, we like this. This gets our stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Everybody feels pretty on board with that. It's not always easy to get to that point of the end of the road like that.
Yeah, and you have to have somebody that stands up for it.
Yes,
that's difficult. In your guys' case, so there was that. There was Dave Bendith. You're making the second album. There was a bunch of songs that were co-written with Billy Corgan, right?
Yep.
So
three.
Yep. There was Forget It was one of them.
Forget It was one of them. You know what?
Was the Rain song? Was that to go right with?
Did I say Forget It when I was talking about that the first album before? If I said Forget It, I meant to say Next to Nothing. Did I say
you said Next to
Nothing.
Nothing.
Did I say okay. It's weird because I think of those two songs kind of in the same lane because they're sort of
that mid-tempo straight.
Yeah, and they weren't like outliers, but they were definitely less heavy. Forget It, Follow, which was track 3, and a song that was released later as a B-side, which was Better Days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those were the ones that I thought.
Oh, and he did a little bit of Rain, I think, as well.
I think that one, the last song in the album, yeah.
Yep.
But, so did they come in as just acoustic demos?
Pretty much.
Yeah, then you went from there.
Yep.
I remember thinking Forget It was pretty creative. I mean, had like all those key changes in it.
Yep.
And I thought that was a good track.
We liked that one too. It kind of started with, sort of not a loop, but like kind of a synthy thing going on. So it sort of drew you into it a little bit.
I mean, that record, there was like several songs on there that were kind of, and I love the first album too. I mean, even the songs that fleshed out the record that we didn't have.
Sure.
we didn't hear before the rest of the world here.
Right.
Before, yeah, so I liked a lot of those songs. Loved them. I thought that was like really strong complement of tunes. And that second album was as well. It seemed like as time went, well, after the second record, you were kind of, well, you were out then.
Correct.
For the third album.
Yes.
And it felt like after, like the focus started to get narrowed. I don't know, just my, not in a necessarily good or bad way, just kind of like the focus of the material started to get narrowed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I kind of, a lot of times when there's certainly nothing wrong with this, but a lot of times when bands have something that they found that works, people like it, sells records, you tend to
want to do it again.
Yeah. And so you say, this worked, let's do more of this. A band that we toured with was Stained.
Yeah.
And they were a band right there where the first time they came out of the gate was the song Mud Shovel. Super heavy tune. They had a hit with one of their ballady songs.
Sure.
And that was pretty much like all you heard from them for the next couple of years. Like when we played with them, their crowds were pretty much like middle-aged couples because they were fans of It's Been a While. I forget all the titles, but you know what I'm saying? So It's just that thing of where I think I can't speak for the guys in Breaking Benjamin, but like I think what happened is they said this worked, and then we'll kind of, like you said, kind of focus on. Yeah.
There was still sort of like a bigger swath in those first two albums than subsequently.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I've done a bunch of these podcasts and we haven't discussed that at all yet.
Okay.
That sort of, okay, this works, and then going down the line, the material will shift based on what works, and then kind of like that you could end up being defined by something, maybe sometimes something that worked by accident even.
Totally.
Or something that was an complete outlier to what you do, or like the definition of what the band, like Under the Bridge, like Chili Peppers.
Exactly. Great point.
Yeah, like something like that is Rick Rubin's like, okay, I want you to sing, What do you mean you want me to sing? Like,
yeah, and it was from a poem that I think that he found. He was like, what's this? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was a brilliant move to say, okay, this is the vibe. Then, from there, Danny California and everything else, with choruses and singing, and from those guys, that maybe was more sort of like a funk rap. I don't know if that's a good word.
Yeah, I would say that. It was definitely a not departure, but very different than the earlier records where it was just more of like party punk.
Yeah.
Like they had the Uplift Mofo Party Plan and the records like that, which were chants, and there wasn't so much singing; it was just chants and rap stuff. Yeah,
and fun. Yeah, and like that was something a little more serious that they did. That one song sort of defined. I mean, I don't talk even like the Foo Fighters. Like Dave Grohl said that had he never written Everlong, things would have been very different. It was just kind of like that much this way that kind of informed what would come after that. It's funny how that works, I mean, some bands like AC/DC, they just stick with that one thing all the way through. But sometimes it's one song that doesn't have anything to do with what the rest of the album was.
I think in the case of Under the Bridge, and then also even with the Stain stuff, was that they found something that made a connection with more than just a singular group of people.
Sure.
People could kind of connect with what they were singing about and all that stuff. And, to your point about one small thing, I was reading something the other day where they were talking about changes that you make in your life, for the good or the bad. You might not seem like a big thing, but if you think of it as like a ship out at sea, you make one little tiny maneuver that might not seem like in this direction, it might not seem like a big thing in the beginning, but then it's going to set you on a totally different course as you continue down that path.
You're gonna land on the island instead of missing it by 10%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you have to kind of have to figure it out from there, But just we sometimes think of those like every step is big, but it's like if you just have a small little thing that could set you on a totally different course. And I'm sure the Chili Peppers were like, "What the heck just happened, man?"
Right? Yeah. And I learned when I got a record deal, the one thing I learned is with everything you would do, everything you would do, every move you would make, you're kind of going through this gauntlet. You're breaking through layers of society. Like you have, here's a good rockin' track, okay?
Yep.
And we're going to put this out. We're going to put this on the radio or wherever. Well, there's a certain number of consumers of that style, So then if you have a song like It's Been a While or whatever, well, that can play on pop radio next to Miley Cyrus season.
Exactly, yeah.
Or whatever, because it's a little lighter, it's a little more introspective, a different type of people. Okay, now you're reaching more people.
A little more mainstream.
Then you make a great video. Or back when videos, even when you guys were starting, videos mattered.
Yeah. With the $300,000 budgets.
Yeah, with the $300,000 budget. So I'm speaking to 2005, 6, whatever.
Yeah.
Then there's a whole other swath of population nationally and internationally that you're going to be able to reach. And sometimes if you're a fan of a band and you're like, oh man, why is that the single? That's the worst song on the record. These guys a lot of times know what they're doing, because they do know what they're doing, because it's like they know how it fits into these formats. They know how it can go up on a playlist next to these other things.
Right.
And of course, I'm speaking 20 years ago mentality. It's a Wild West now, and everything with content and social media and podcasts and things like that to get your stuff out there. But it's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so you guys, I remember you making that record. I don't remember much about the touring after that. I remember hearing the album.
Yeah. First tour. Thinking back, maybe Godsmack didn't happen until that album. Now that I think about it. Because I remember that definitely happened on We Are Not Alone. Maybe we just toured with them again. You know what I mean? So maybe it was like just another round. And honestly, I know why I don't remember too much of the touring, because I wasn't there. I was not there for most of the touring. So no, I think Godsmack was first album. If you have Aaron on, like you can confirm or whatever. And then I think that there was a little bit with them on the second album, but second album was released in June, maybe. Okay. And September, I was no longer there.
Okay, so that's 4 months.
Yeah. So there wouldn't have been a lot of.
So you did that album in its entirety,
yes,
as according to what I.
The only thing I didn't do was when they were putting that out, the original Rain had no drums or percussion, and then the drummer who came in after me, I think they decided to put drums on. I think he played drums on the album. Okay. So, or at least they did another release of the album. There were drums on the record. Yeah. So, yeah.
And we did two more. We did that Ladybug song and Enjoy the Silence, that cover of Enjoying the.
Yes, we did that for Saturate for the Japanese release, I believe that was. And I have to say, like I talk about fond memories, I really just enjoyed. If anybody has never heard it before, in fact, I even played it for my kids somewhat recently because it's not like a more popular Breaking Benjamin thing. I'm like, did you guys ever hear this? Because I'm pretty proud of that song and the way that we were all worked on that together. But a fond memory was working with Paul. I don't even really know what the name was of the thing that he had was, but it was off in that side room and just working on that loop and everything to try to get it to be similar to what the original was, but not
enjoy the silence.
Yeah, to not have it be like full on copycat. But that was a lot of fun. Was just kind of working on sounds, and I just remember little things. I remember recording that song. There's some different like double bass parts going on in that you talked about the precision. The soldier-like mentality. So that riff, so I was playing, kind of matching that with the kicks, and we did a take or two, and I seemed relatively okay with it. And I remember Paul just saying from the control room, he's like, do another one. He said, your feet are just getting warmed up. And I was just like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Thanks for letting me know that. So I just remember small things like that. And so now when I hear Enjoy the Silence, I visualize me playing the drums in Saturation, the old Saturation Acres and stuff like that. So,
that was it. That was a fun session. I loved Ladybug too. It was just
Ladybug was cool.
Like a Nirvana kind of punky thing.
Yep.
That was like a real early, like, I don't know, to me, that's where I was getting out of it. But that was alive, that was just just a fun.
Well, you talked about how things in the band's sound kind of got a little bit more focused, for lack of a better word. Yeah. But that was like back in the time when we did have some different things that we liked, and so we felt we could do some songs that would have the punky qualities, or it would have maybe like in Simple Design there was like an acoustic guitar section where things broke down. Just little things like that. There was a little bit more of a, I don't want to go as far as say a melting pot of influence is not that grand, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I just enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. That was a fun time for me and for Paul and I.
Us as well.
For
sure.
So we really enjoyed that. So the album's done, and I'll leave it up to you. It's, you're not running for office, so it's not my charge to ask you the tough questions. You talk about what you want to talk about. But so basically,
there's folklore behind all of this.
There's folklore behind all of this, and there even up to this point, there's no shortage of a shit show that has gone on just to get you guys to this second record and this basically several songs. Certainly "So Cold." It's a classic rock track. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and that'll be around forever. So. Okay, so what happened? In your words.
Yep. So, in my words, I would say that when we did the first album, before we went on tour for the first album, Mark, our bass player, had wanted to take some time off before we would start touring. We were okay with that, pretty much. So that's when they had their first child. So Kaya. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So when it came time for us to do our touring, we didn't want to delay getting on the road because So Cold was starting to pick up some steam. But my son was to be born in early September.
Julian.
Yes, Julian. And so, I asked for the same. It was granted. And so we got a guy who came in and I didn't want to hold them back to stop touring. I'd said let's get a fill in for myself for a month or so, and then I'll just come back on tour. And so a couple of days after Julian was born, there was a member that decided to take it upon themselves to say, I kind of like not having Jeremy around anymore. And, I don't want to get too deep into things, but I would just say this, that there was nothing that, me well enough to know that there's nothing that I did to warrant anything such as that. But I think at the end of the day, what it really was that I think maybe from the very beginning, Ben was looking for yes people.
Sure.
And since he and I started it together, I think that because I was somebody who would call him out on some things that I didn't think were cool, I think that he found the opportunity to no longer have that there was to his benefit. So all of a sudden, it's a go ahead.
Logistically, you're at home with your newborn son.
Yes.
And they actually have a different drummer in there playing, and the band is out there.
Yes.
So it's just really sort of easy to say, don't come back.
Yes.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
So it's a very, very strange time because on one hand, my life is amazing. Have our firstborn child, had just bought a house.
Yeah.
I had a really awesome feature in Modern Drummer magazine, which was like, for me, a dream come true because I read that thing.
This.
Yeah. I mean, I read that like the Bible since I was a kid. And so for them to actually call me and say, we want to do a feature on you, it was just amazing. So like all these really good things are happening. And then you get a call that what you've worked so hard for and what your dream essentially was, you're just being told that that's not going to be a reality anymore.
It's going to come out, not going to go on.
Correct. So I think internally what I did was I knew that was a really negative thing, obviously, but having had a newborn, my son, Julian, I didn't want that to affect how I felt and the joy of having a kid. Yeah. So it's like, I think that helped me to keep my focus on the joy and starting to know my son and being with my family. And, you know, like I said, we just bought a house. So that kind of really helped to negate any of this stuff over there. Not entirely, because it's obviously something that it's hard to get rid of it, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But so my first inclination though is I thought, well, I've never been one to sit around and just like sort of dwell on stuff. So I'd have been a teacher before Breaking Benjamin. And so I thought, well, I mean, I'm just going to go back to teaching. Like that's pretty much a no-brainer. And so I got started doing that again. But, you know, I am a believer in like the way that God and the universe works with us in certain ways. And this is a pretty cool thing. It was maybe a week after the whole thing goes down. And Yvette and I are kind of in sort of like a very weird place. And I'm in my backyard, and there's these guys that are coming around, and they're looking to promote this thing that's going to be happening in town. It was some kind of show. And all it says believe.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, huh. Because I was looking for some signs, you know what I mean? Like, where should I? And they just hand me this card that says believe. I still get chills thinking about it. And we still have the card hanging up in our kitchen at home.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I, just kind of picked myself up and started teaching again, started reaching out to band directors, getting my student base built up. Another thing I started doing was, we mentioned Modern Drummer. I had read some things in Modern Drummer before that I thought were like, hey, maybe I could write something like that, like just different concepts and stuff. So on a whim, like the one day, people have sometimes asked me, they'd be like, hey man, like that's a pretty cool thing that you got to write for Modern Drummer. Mm-hmm. Like, how'd you get to do that? And my response is always simple. I just said, I asked. Yeah. Because what I did was I remember sitting in the one bedroom saying, okay, well, how would one go about this? Looked at the front of the magazine. Who's the editor? Okay, he's got an email, typed him up an email and just said, introduced myself and just said, hey, I think that, I could have something to offer if you would give me a chance to write some stuff. And he wrote back to me pretty directly and he said, sure, send me something. He said, send me what you have. And I don't think there's anything I ever wrote from that point forward that they didn't accept. So it was super cool. So I wrote for that magazine for a while and was teaching and then, started Into the Spin in 2009. I've had that band together for, I think it's whatever that is, 2009, 10 years, 2019, 17 years. Yeah. Happy to say with that band, we only ever had one line. There's 8 people in the band. We've only ever had one lineup change in the whole 17 years, and that was within the first 6 months of the band. First guitar player didn't work out, and we knew Mike Harvey, called Mike, and he's been with us ever since. We have one instance 2 years ago where our one member had, he and his wife had a third child, And he was really busy with his band directing gig that he had, so he just needed to take a little bit of time to help out at home. And then he's been back in the band now for a couple of years. So,
Nice.
So
Oh, that's
just
awesome.
pivoted, teaching. I'm never going to stop playing music. My attitude is I think one of the things that we have in common for people who do, like you've had on here, because we kind of are all sort of like doing our own thing, but making a living doing it, is that, we tend to bet on ourselves.
Yeah.
Like I will always bet on myself, because I know I can get it done, whatever I have to do. And so, you're the same way. Dustin's doing it. Jack, was on, like, he did the Dirty Looks. So like Paul, he has so like, we, Chad over here, Mike, we bet on ourselves, and there's like, not everybody has the fortitude to do that. That doesn't mean that like we are better than other people, but if you like have something that you are strongly talented at and you're willing to get up every day and make that work, why would you not do that?
Yeah.
So
I've made a joke that when the pandemic hit, so many people freaked out. You have a job, then all of a sudden you're at home. A lot of times maybe you're not working, or however it plays out, or you get laid off,
right,
or whatever the case may be. A lot of people freaked out because like there was sort of this outside system that they always banked on.
Yes.
I get up in the morning, I go to work, my direct deposit on Friday morning.
Yep.
It's there. If it's there 2 hours late, I'm on the phone. You're just used to that certainty. And musicians are so used to uncertainty, and so used to, okay, I need whatever. Like three things. Okay, there was a snowstorm, and the biggest gig I had in 3 months got canceled.
Right.
Whatever. So
Yeah.
used
Excuse
to,
me.
or the story you just relayed. Most people don't come back from that story. Most people don't. They just say screw it and they're done. And they don't come back from that. And that was, I'll give you, these 2 episodes we're doing here. That's my biggest compliment to you personally that I'll give you was, I was like, you're in a band that's doing really well. This was a double platinum album as time went on. And you came back, you started teaching, you called me, and you said, yeah, you want to play some gigs? And we're playing some duo gigs together, playing bars or wherever we're playing, and it seemed like the most natural thing in the world to me, to you. I'm like, man, I didn't hear you complain once,
No.
Yeah. And it wasn't ever like the option was, well, that's it. It was like, okay, all right, well, what do we got to do? We got to do something else.
Dust ourselves off.
That's like you said, as I was 15 or I was 15, 9, whatever. This is what I am. This is what I want to do, no matter what. And I want to figure that out. And I was just in this really, really successful band, playing arenas and playing these places, and on the way to a double platinum album that I put all of my life into, and it got derailed overnight, But then a couple days later, you're in a coffee house, you know what I mean? Playing the drums.
Yep.
And dude, not everybody will do that,
Well, thanks, man.
No,
Appreciate
not
that.
everybody will do that. That'd take a lot of people down, and that's one of the things besides the music and your great playing and the sessions we've done and all the great music we've made, that I love the camaraderie of a person like that.
Thank you.
I really
Likewise,
do.
yeah.
I really do. I love that. I love that sense of, that sense of we're going to make it work, one way or another, and experience and knowing your history and, and all that kind of stuff comes up. And that's kind of why, besides documenting all these people and places and stories and stuff, there's a lot of the reason I wanted to do this, because I got all these people with, like yours included, just these amazing stories from guys that are around that maybe young people that don't know the history,
Sure.
And
Yeah.
until it's a story, like once you hear, it's like anything in this world, once you hear the story, it becomes a lot more interesting to you. When you tell somebody's story, and where it came from, and you know, here's the part that I wanted to do this thing, and here's the part where when all went south. Here's the part where I didn't know what to do. Here's the part where I could have given up, but I didn't. You know, to me, that's really inspirational. And yeah, man, you're the man. You're the man. Besides your playing, the playing is stellar. You know, but that part of your character is that's why you're doing well, man. You know what I mean? And your kids know your name.
Yeah.
And your wife,
right.
You know,
right.
maybe doesn't like give you a big hug when you come home from a gig. If that doesn't, you know, she's
well, and I think I mentioned you and I played together a couple weeks ago, and since you mentioned Yvette, like one of the other common themes on this podcast, aside from, you know, like we bet on ourselves.
Yeah.
Most of the people that you've had on here have some pretty strong women in their lives.
You have to.
Strong and supportive women. And like, you know, Yvette was literally driving me and my drums to gigs, like back when Breaking Benjamin first started, because I didn't have a driver's license at the time.
Yeah.
You know, so she'd be helping me load my drums in the back of the Buick. I had a big Buick because then, you know, you could fit all the drums in there. And she's just always been by my side, and like we've been through the Breaking Benjamin stuff. And so, but yeah, I'm fortunate to have her, and I think everybody else.
She was driving
here.
you to the sessions, like when we were doing our first recordings.
Yeah. I
mean, I met her way early, you know, and then her and Kelly, we used to hang out at the shows. And,
yeah.
You know, yeah. So that was super cool, you know. And I remember that was another thing, just as an aside, was if that's driving you and you had the Buick or whatever it was that when you was driving, and like it's like, you know, you're in like, you know, you want this heavy rock band that wants to have this image, and the first thing you buy when you get a deal is a minivan.
That's right.
To put your drums in.
That's right, exactly. And the
kid.
and the kid. And the two things that are funny about that is like, so that happens, and it, like everybody that I know, they're like, we bought a minivan, man. They're like we should buy like a hot sports car or something like that. And it's like, well no, because I was thinking practical.
Yeah,
I've been putting my drums in the Buick this whole time. I just want to be able to like load my drums comfortably
in the side.
And yeah, and I want to be able to do this. And so, you know, I bought the minivan, and 2 months later, like we're on the tour, didn't even need the thing anyway because we're with the bus.
Yeah.
But to this day, that's what I drive. You know, because then once I had kids, it was perfect because it was big enough. If I had a late gig, I could keep my drums in the back. But then if I got home, I could take my kids to school and put them in. I wouldn't have to take my drums out. They could just sit in the middle seat. So I've been driving minivans since 2002, whatever it's called.
My kids got in the back seat many times, you know, with the mic stands on the floor, you know, they got their feet propped up, you know, because I didn't take all the crap out.
Right.
You know, a bunch of
how we fit in here.
Yeah, they're all in there, you know, sitting next to the speakers, and that's part of the life. So I mean, like I said, I mean, that's a big compliment from me to you, because it's great, and you know, had you been on the road that whole time, you would have gotten to spend a whole lot less time with Julian and Violet and Yvette and all that. And you're still playing, and you're out at night and home late, and it's not a normal life. It's still not a normal life, even with the way you're doing it now. But at least, you know, when Arlo was born, I was like right in that cusp when everything went wrong for me and us for a different reason,
right.
But at the same time, you know, I mean, Harlow was born. I left weeks later to go make our second major label album. Okay. You know?
Yeah.
And we made all that, and then it took longer to play out. But, you know, there was a house. I'd bought a house, had a kid, thought you'd mapped out the future.
Right.
And boom, all gone.
Yeah.
Instantly gone.
I remember when that happened with you guys, and I just feeling, you know, just so crushed for you guys too. You know what I mean? It's like, what's going to happen and all that stuff. And so, And
we weren't setting things up to be AC/DC or something. You know, you're planning forward thinking, well, okay, if I do as well this next tour as I did the last one, then I got a plan here.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and you're thinking, okay, everything up to now, 6 years to get to there in my case, and then quicker in yours. But 6 years to get there in my case, and we've had a pretty successful tour. It went okay. We're good. Everybody's still excited. We're getting ready to make another record. Everybody's excited about that. And you guys made that second album, and and out you go. And then that's something I never really thought of that we have in common, because it was a similar timeline. It was buy a house, then had your firstborn, and then bottom drops out completely, and then you're like, okay,
what you going to do?
What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? And you thought you had a plan, and then you don't have a plan. And like I said, most people, that's it. And it takes a certain amount of.
May I share a story?
Sure.
Okay.
Please.
So I think, like, sometimes people would maybe say, to you, huge amount of respect to you, because you never stopped being a songwriter. You never stopped being a musician. No. To this day, you're running your own business, like booking gigs and all that stuff. And like, some people might say, well, like, where does that come from? Like, how does one acquire that stuff? Well, some of it, I think, is that you develop it over time, like that whole thing. But for me, I was in 8th grade, and I went out for the basketball team. Okay. And I went out for the basketball team. And the only reason why I went out for the basketball team was because all my friends played basketball. So I knew if I didn't do basketball, I wasn't hanging with my friends that year.
They all played. Yeah.
They all played. So I went out for the team, barely made the team. In fact, the coach called me animal, because I would just run. I didn't have any skills, just run around. But I played defense really hard. Like, I had passion behind it. So I made the team. But what happened that year was I just developed this love for the game. I just really started to love it. I started to watch it. I started to like practice more and everything. And I was like, this is something that I want to do. But I was no good. I was really not good at all. And I met this guy. And I had this on my website for a while. I'm not sure if it's still up there, but I met this guy who used to be a really good basketball star at Selinsgrove. His name is Bill Caviston. And I would see him up at the playground, and I asked him if he would help me. Can you help me like with my game to get better and everything? And I remember he was like a pretty tall guy, very lots of confidence, and he was just like, I can help you. He said, but you're going to work hard. He's like, I'm going to have you work. And I was like, okay, I'm all in. So that whole summer, from like sun up to sundown, no joke, I was at the playground working on my game. And I went from being completely horrible basketball player to 9th grade. Within a year, I was a starter, and they voted me as a team captain within a year. Practiced even more. Sophomore year, only sophomore to make the varsity team. So what I gained from that was I learned you don't have to be awesome at something. You don't have to have even a lot of talent in this field, but if you work hard, I feel like you can do almost anything you want to do. I really do. Outside of like go jump off of a skyscraper, so,
sure,
whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like if you put in hard work, and I've told people before, I feel like hard work, I don't know where the quote comes from, but hard work beats talent.
Yeah.
When talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
So you could have somebody who has all the talent in the world, but if they're not cultivating and continuing to work on that craft, those people who don't have the talent but are willing to put in the work will surpass that. That can be applied to music, business, anything like that. So the point being that I think that from that experience, seeing that I was able to have success by putting in hard work, set myself up for the future, whether it was trying to get, the early days of Breaking Benjamin off the ground, or, like when the whole storm came my way, it's just kind of like, this might stink, but what are we going to do? I know if I just work hard, if I just put myself out there, get some students, then started working with the marching band. So that for me, that's kind of where, that was a huge point in my life that taught me a huge lesson, that you don't have to be awesome at something. You just have to have the will to put yourself into it, to make it happen.
I mean, I played sports in high school and college,
yes.
And I think maybe that had more to do was maybe informed more of my career maybe than I let on, or that I even really thought about. Okay. I mean, it's not quite like a military career or something like that, or something that's, just, it's not quite that level of discipline, but it's very, you got a bunch of guys, you're trying to accomplish something together, and it takes discipline and drive and work and
sacrifice.
Yeah. And if you have talent and you're hardworking, and you can then down the line, you have to deal with your limits, and you have to deal with, all of that to kind of be able to work with people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to, that can go off the rails too. If you're too focused on yourself and your,
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And your own vision of what you want to do, or your own ambition, I guess would be a better word. But that's another thing with this podcast is I like to talk about everybody's journey with all these kind of things, and kind of like at the end of the day, where does the cocktail end up? The cocktail of life and family and music and your community and all these things that you do. And you're a perfect example of that. Yeah, I mean, 2 great kids, great wife, play great, could play with anybody you wanted to play with. And at some point along the way, you have to see where do you find that? Where do you find that niche?
Yeah.
Where do you find the sweet spot of that? So you can have all those things. And not everybody gets there. A lot of people don't get there, and they end up somewhere they don't want to be.
Right.
But it's great. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the first podcast, great player. We didn't even really talk in these podcasts about the session work.
There's a lot to unpack.
That would be another episode. We'll save that for next time.
Yeah.
All the session work we've done together, doing the session work, doing all the education, working with a marching band, doing that. I mean, that's certainly a community outreach thing. My daughter is a marching band director, you know what I mean, and a music teacher. My eldest, Harlow, and I've seen what that does for kids. We had this conversation a little bit. Yep. Just like what that does, what kind of a community and what kind of a tribe that gives to kids, marching band, and I know it doesn't put people in the seats like a good football team does, but the value of that for young kids
Yep.
is touching to see, and I can imagine you're really good at my daughter is great at it, and I'm sure you're very good at it as well. So that's a noble thing to do. So in the end, up to the end of, not the end. I don't know. Continuing story to be continued.
To be continued.
Yeah, and I mean, to be proud of, and I'm glad I got, for myself personally, let alone let everybody else share with this. I'm glad I got a document of a few of our things, and we'll do it again.
Yes, agreed.
All right, buddy?
Sounds good, man.
All right, give it to me.
Thanks so much for having me. Yep, appreciate it.
We'll see you.
All right.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.